Hi, I'm Maddie if you're new here, and today I'm going to be reviewing some of the most popular books that I have seen on BookTok and BookTube the past couple of years. Most people who make BookTok and BookTube videos average like 100 books a year, which is really awesome for them, but I feel like really unrealistic for most of us. As a college student, I do not have that much extra time to read, but the past couple of years I've averaged around 20 books a year, which I feel like is a more realistic total. And I'm just going to be telling you all if I think they're worth the hype. I did want to preface that this is going to be in no particular order. I just grabbed them off my shelf and put them in stacks. So the order that I grabbed them in is the order I'm going to be reviewing them in. We're starting off with a banger, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. This book won so many awards from Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, just all of the places that you go for book recs. And I will say I was not disappointed. I really enjoyed this book from start to finish. There were definitely some sad parts, but I really enjoyed the humor that was woven in throughout the piece. So if you haven't picked this one up yet, I would highly recommend. It is definitely worth everything that I saw on social media about it. These next four books I want to lump in together because they are all by the same author. We have Carrie Soto is back, Malibu Rising, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and then I don't have the physical copy, but I also read Daisy Jones and the Six, and these are all by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who I've seen so much from on BookTube, and for good reason. All of these books were really good. My favorite out of these four that I read from her was definitely Daisy Jones and the Six. It was a 5-star read for me. I tore through it in a day. The book was written kind of like a play, so it had the character's name and then the lines that they were saying, which made it really quick to read, and the plot was just so good. Would highly recommend. My second favorite was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Again, I tore through this one really quickly. The plot was really good. All of her books just have a feminist focus, which I really like, and that's kind of a theme with a lot of the books that I read, like Lessons in Chemistry was very feminist focused, and I just really appreciate books where that's at the forefront. My least favorite out of these was Carrie Soto is Back, and this was still a high 3-star read for me. And the reason that this was my least favorite was it is super heavy on the tennis. While I'm someone who likes sports, I did not really care for the really heavy emphasis on tennis, and I also really didn't like the ending, but I would still recommend it. It is a quick read. Like, all of her books are what I would call light. They're not too heavy, or they don't take too long to get through, so if you want something that you can get through in a few days, this is definitely a good one to pick up. Lastly, we have Malibu Rising, which was still a very solid 4-star read for me. I think just having read Daisy Jones and the Six and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo first, this one just didn't quite live up to either of those in my opinion, but I would still definitely recommend this book. Next we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and I've seen a lot of this on BookTube. My mom also saw it a lot on her social media, so she was actually the one who got me this book because it won the Orange Prize for fiction. I actually DNF'd this book pretty quickly. This book was just not what I was expecting. It was not a plot that I was connecting to, and I was expecting it to be, I guess, similar vibes to a Percy Jackson type book, which I love. I love a good Greek mythology book. This was just not doing it for me. I feel like this book is tremendously overhyped, but I know a lot of people really love this book, so I'm interested to know in the comments if you've read this book or read part of it, what your thoughts are. Do you think this lives up to the hype or not? Going back to a classic author from my middle school and high school days, we have a couple of Veronica Roth books. Starting off, we have The Chosen Ones. I personally did not care for this book. I was really sad because I loved the Divergent trilogy. That is easily a 5-star series for me, so I was expecting this to be another 5-star, at least a 4-star. No, let me just check Goodreads real quick. I gave this book 2 stars, which is such a low rating. I would not recommend. If you like Veronica Roth, keep it that way and don't pick up this book. On the other hand, we have Veronica Roth's newest release, Poster Girl, which I believe came out at the end of 2022. and this one was really good. I tore through it and I believe I gave this 4 stars. If you like Veronica Roth and you like the Divergent trilogy, then I think Poster Girl is going to be more up your alley than Chosen Ones. It's another sci-fi dystopian type of vibe, which is one of my favorite genres, so would highly recommend to my fellow dystopian lovers. Let's move on to the most viral author on booktube and booktok, Emily Henry. I have now read all 5 of her books. Starting off with a book that has made her famous on booktok and booktube, we have Beach Read. If I'm being completely honest, this is a solid 3-star book for me. I know for most people that read this book, it is 5 stars. Some people even say 6 stars, and that is so good for them. However, I just feel like there's nothing special about this book. Maybe it's because I don't really connect with the plot or I don't connect with the characters, but I just don't understand how so many people are obsessed with this book, because to me it just feels like a very generic romance book, and there's not anything wrong with that. I just feel like because it's so generic, I couldn't justify giving it anything more than 3 stars because it was just so average in my opinion. Next we have Book Lovers, which is actually the first Emily Henry book that I read, and I would say that I did like this one more than Beach Read, just because this book does primarily take place in North Carolina, which is where I'm from, so I guess I felt a bit of a hometown connection to the setting. But again, it felt like a very average romance book. This was enemies to lovers, which within romance probably is my favorite trope. So if you like that type of romance, this would probably be one that you really enjoy. Next we have People We Meet on Vacation, which was another solid 3-star read for me, but I will say that I started thinking about the characters in this book more than the other 2, which is interesting, and I know that's normally a sign that the book was really good, is if you remember the characters. But I really think the reason I was remembering the characters is because in the book there's a trip to Palm Springs, and that's where I went for spring break, so I feel like I was just thinking a lot about this book because I wanted to go on a trip where they went on a trip in this book, if that makes sense. I don't think it was so much the book, but more so the setting, once again. Next up we have Happy Place, which is actually the most recent Emily Henry book that I read. I just finished it this morning actually, and I will say this is my favorite Emily Henry book. Again, this is an enemies to lovers kind of plot, which I really liked, and I think also I just connected to the plot a little more in this one than the other ones because there were flashbacks to college days, and I'm in college, and with most of her other books the characters being in their 30s, it's just not something that I can really relate to, but being in college is something that I can relate to, and I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. Finally we have Funny Story, which is Emily Henry's latest release, and my mom is currently reading it, so I need to make sure I don't lose her place. But this one was a 4-star read for me. I actually really liked it, and I felt like the plot was different than the other Emily Henry books that I had read to that point, which were the first 3 that I showed, and that was kind of an issue that I had with the first 3 Emily Henry books that I read, was I felt like they all had very similar plots, and I just wasn't getting anything new out of reading her other books. So in general, I do feel like Emily Henry is slightly overhyped by the booktube and booktok community, but I do think that she's a very talented author and her books are worth reading. It's just with how much people are talking about it online, I feel like everyone expects it to be a 5-star read when they go into it. That's definitely what I was expecting, and so when they turned out to just be solid 3-star reads, some 4s in there, I was just a little disappointed given all the hype that she has. Next we have The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and this was a really good, really solid read. Nice 3 stars from me. I definitely do want to read the rest of the trilogy, but because it was average for me at 3 stars, it's just not been one that I've been itching to get my hands on to read the next 2. However, one thing that's really nice about her writing style, and I've heard about her other series as well, is the chapters are really short. So if you're someone who likes to feel like you're flying through a book, that you're getting through like multiple chapters a day, this would be a really good series to start with, because you're going to feel like you're making a lot more progress than if you're reading a book where the chapters are like 60 pages long. This is a mystery type of book, which is not my favorite genre, but it is really interesting and entertaining. Like I said, I do want to circle back to the series at some point. It's just not at the top of my TBR. Next up, we have Shatter Me, which worth every single hyped up review it has gotten on Goodreads, BookTok, BookTube, Barnes & Noble. Anywhere you get your information about books and you've seen something good about this, there is a reason, guys. So good. 5 stars all the way. And I immediately jumped into the second and the third book in this series, and they were so good. Finished them in like a day each. And then unfortunately school started and I had to stop halfway through the series, but don't worry, I have the last 3 in the series right here on my physical TBR, so we will be getting finished with that super quickly because I just know that I'm going to tear through them. So would recommend 5-star series all the way. Moving along, we have Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. And I saw so much stuff on social media about this book, which is why I purchased it. It was really expensive, but I was like, this book, everyone's raving about it, it's going to be amazing. I did not like this book. I pushed through and made myself finish it because I was like, okay, maybe I'm gonna like it, maybe I'll see what everyone's talking about. No, I gave this book 2 stars. It was not even average for me. I did not like this book. I feel like it is severely overhyped, and I feel like people are gonna hate on me for it because it's one of the highest rated books on Goodreads, but I personally just do not see it. It is so like video game heavy and coding focused. Maybe it's because I have 0 interest in video games. I was just not relating to the plot or to the characters. It just, I don't understand why people love this book so much. Next we have I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, and this is an autobiography, which is something that I would usually never pick up. But like most people, I watched iCarly growing up. I loved iCarly growing up. And so when I saw that she came out with a book and people were raving about it, I had to go get it. And this was so good, guys. So good. It is hilarious to read, but has a lot of really important messages in it. If you've been hesitant to read this because it's an autobiography and you're wondering if it's for you or not, I would highly suggest reading it. Like I was saying, there's a lot of really important tidbits of wisdom in here, but Jeanette presents it in such a funny and entertaining and captivating way that you honestly don't really feel like you're reading an autobiography. You feel like you're reading a work of fiction almost. So she just did such a great job putting this together and honestly being really vulnerable in it. So would recommend 5 stars for sure. Next up we have The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han, who is the author of the To All the Boys I Loved Before series, which I really enjoyed when I read it in high school. However, coming back to her writing as a college student, I did not enjoy this book at all. I definitely was getting middle school vibes while I was reading it and just wasn't connecting to it at all. I did watch the show on Amazon and felt similarly about the show, so I think it's just the plot that's not attractive to me as a college student. However, if you do like very young adult romances, then I would recommend, but it was so bad that I decided not to continue with the rest of the books in the series. Before we get into my physical TBR, I did want to share what I'm currently reading. I'm currently reading this massive book, The Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare, which is the 3rd book in the Last Hour series, which is part of the Shadowhunters world. I love Shadowhunters. I have so many Shadowhunters books on my shelf behind me. I have read, well, after I read this book, I will have read every single Shadowhunters book I know that some people on BookTok and BookTube are not the biggest fans of Cassandra Clare's work in the Shadowhunters universe, but I'm a huge fan and I will stand by that. I think her work is amazing, and if you're someone who really likes other really popular series like Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, Twilight, this is just another series that's up there with those for me, and I feel like it deserves more hype in the booktube community. So I'm here to give Cassandra Clare that hype. For my physical TBR, I already talked about the Shatter Me series, but I have books 4 through 6. So we have Restore Me, Defy Me, and Imagine Me. These are all dystopian sci-fi books, and I'm very excited to read them. The next 2 books are part of a completely viral book series right now. I have the first 2 books in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. So I have The Assassin's Blade, which is a collection of I think 3 novellas that take place before the first book, Throne of Glass. Knowing that this is sci-fi, I know that I'm going to absolutely love the series, and I'm going to want to purchase the rest of the series so fast so that way I don't miss a beat. Also by Sarah J. Maas, I have the first book in the ACOTAR series, A Court of Thorn and Roses. Again, I've heard really great things about this series, and I'm super excited to read this, hopefully fall in love with it, and read the rest of the series as well. The last book that I have on my physical TBR is The Sword Catcher by Cassandra Clare. So as I mentioned, I love Cassandra Clare's books so much, and this is actually not a Shadowhunters book. She is starting a new world, so I'm really excited to get into that and just start new worlds in general, having all the new Sarah J. Maas worlds on my TBR as well. I really hope that you all enjoyed today's video and enjoyed listening to a different take on some of the internet's most hyped up books. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments your thoughts on any of these books, as well as any book recommendations that you may have, and subscribe while you're down there. You all watching this video and supporting my channel really means a lot, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast.
It's not about personality matrixels and charts. It's all about the bumps in your heart.